Good morning, my fellow commissioners and staff. Um, Mendocino County Planning Commission, September 1st, 2022 meeting begins. The Mendocino County Planning Commission meetings will be conducted virtually and not available for in-person participation. Pursuant to the provisions of the Government Code Section 54953 and the recommendation of the Mendocino County Health Officer. Meetings are live streamed and available for viewing on the Mendocino County YouTube page at www.youtube.com/Mendocino County Video. In order to minimize the risk of exposure during the time of emergency, the public may participate digitally in meetings by sending comments to PBS commissions@mendocinocounty.org or orally via telecomment in lieu of personal attendance. All public comment will be made available to the commissioners, staff, and the general public after processing by staff and can be viewed as attachment to this meeting's agenda on the Planning Commission agenda page. To submit comments via telecomment, the Zoom link and associated instructions can be found on the agenda for this meeting. In order to ensure that you are called upon to provide comment, please complete the telecomment form found at www.mendocinocounty.org/government/planning-services/meeting-agendas. And clerk, could we have roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Wiedemann,
Here.
Commissioner Jones,
Present.
Chair Purnell is absent by prearrangement. Commissioner Babini,
Here. Sorry, I wouldn't.
Commissioner Pollan.
Here.
All right. We're going to move on to agenda item number 2, Planning Commission Administration. Discussion and possible action, including adopting a resolution of the Mendocino County Planning Commission finding that the state or local officials continue to recommend measures to promote social distancing in connection with public meetings. Is there any public comment on this item?
We have received none.
All right. May I have a motion to adopt this action?
So moved.
I'll second.
Do we need roll call on this, Matt?
Deputy County Counsel Matthew Kudrowski. It's just simple enough to do it. I would just ask that we do that.
Okay.
Commissioner Jones,
Yes.
Commissioner Pollan,
Yes.
Commissioner Babini,
Yes.
Chair Wiedemann.
Yes. All right. Do we have determination of legal notice?
Yes, the item on today's agenda was legally noted.
All right. Thank you. We're moving to agenda item number 3, Director's Report. Do we have anything to report in?
Thank you, Vice Chair Wiedemann, Julia Krog, Planning and Building Services Director. The main thing I want to report, as I noted, was just a little bit about recruitments within the department. So we did have a chief planner recruitment close. We only had one applicant as part of that. So we have gone back out to list, and that's a 4-week recruitment. So closing later in September. Then I do want to also note, if this wasn't noted during my time out of the office, that we did promote Marco Rodriguez, who was an administrative assistant, to a planning technician within our department. So we're excited to see his growth throughout the department, and he is working now as a planning technician. Additionally, we have received an accepted offer for our cartographer planner, and I'm sure I'll announce a little bit more about that once they have actually started with our department as well. But we're excited about that. It'll help to relieve our senior planner, Russ's Ford's plate a little bit, and also provide for more quicker turnaround on mapping services for the department. So that's a few of the updates from recruitments, and I'm of course happy to answer any questions the commission may have of me.
Do my fellow commissioners have any questions? Seeing that there are no questions, let's move on to agenda item number 4, matters from the public. Members of the public are welcome to address the Planning Commission on items not listed on the agenda, but within the jurisdiction of the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission is prohibited by law from taking action on matters not on the agenda. Individuals wishing to address the Planning Commission under matters from the public may do so via email, telephone, or Zoom. For information on each of these methods, call the Planning and Building Department at 707-234-6650 or visit www.mendocinocounty.org/government/planning-building-services/meeting-agendas. All correspondence will be attached to the item and made available online on the Planning Commission agenda page. If any members of the public log into the Zoom meeting wishes to speak under public expression and have not completed the telecomment form, please use the raise hand feature to allow staff to add you to the meeting. Instructions for using the raise hand features are found on the agenda for this meeting. Are there any requests for a telecomment under public expression?
No,
All right. Well, seeing that there's no.
sorry, there is a raised hand feature. I thought it was, excuse me. There is someone.
All
So if you
right.
give me a moment here, I'll go ahead and share my screen so we can start the timer. And we'll bring in Miss Anna Marie Weibel to provide comment. Anna Marie, we've.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. I asked several times for you to rewrite the wireless guidelines. I'm asking again. I asked to have you put on a workshop so that staff and the public know more about 5G. Also, that I asked for a bylaw change because with one issue, the public was not able to appeal because not enough commissioners were present, and the bylaws are still based on having more members. So like today, Ms. Purnell is absent, and the other time, a member was absent and was notifying the county for 4 months beforehand that she was going to be absent. So the bylaw change needs to happen. I also feel it's time to end that recommending social distancing and open it up to the public and still have the Zoom and phone possibility. In addition, I'm glad to see that now one of the issues I had was corrected, that actually people who submit a comment then get a second email with more information and do not have to go on the agenda to find the link and all that, because in the first email, they're told they will receive more information. That was changed as of this morning. Thank you for that. In addition, I don't see on your agenda that bylaw change that was requested by Marie Jones at the last meeting. And, you know, we were told that this could easily happen today. So the bylaw change that she was in favor of is to limit an applicant from having continuous meetings without paying a new fee. And however you want to word that, I expect that to be at the next Planning Commission meeting, because that is very important and seems important to the commissioners as well. That's all for my comments, and thank you And I hope some of these requests are being looked at and dealt with. Thank you.
Do we have any other public participation or comment at this time?
We see no hands raised in the attendees area.
All right, seeing that there's none and that we don't have anything on the agenda number 5, consent calendar, we move to item 6A on regular calendar. Case number U 2017-0036. This is continued from August 18, 2022, coastal development use permit to authorize the construction and operation of a wireless communication facility. My outline's a little unclear here, so bear with me. It talks about opening the public hearing first. In this,
Yeah, you can open the public hearing really at any point. It's just then later on in that your guide there, it'll talk about then requesting that the public may comment on the item.
Right. Okay, so let's open the public hearing and announce the hearing procedures. Do you want to announce the hearing procedures?
Sure,
Julia?
absolutely. So what we will be doing is going through the applicant or the staff's presentation. The commission will be able to ask any questions of the staff. Then the applicant and their agents will have an opportunity to provide comment to the commission as well. Similarly, the commission may ask questions of the applicant or their agents. At that point, the chair can open the public comment portion of the hearing. The public will get an opportunity to comment. And then after that point, the chair will close the public hearing and the commission can deliberate and ask questions of staff, the agent, the applicant, and or the public if they so desire, and then render their decision.
All right. How about if we have the commissioner staff note correspondence and telephone calls received?
Sure. So we have had several public comment letters submitted for this item. Those letters have been posted to the public webpage, and also at the request of the commission, the previous public comments were mailed to the commissioners, both from the 2019 hearing that occurred, as well as the various 2022 hearings. Those were distributed as part of the Planning Commission's agenda packets. And there are several members of the public on the line as well that will be providing verbal public comment when that time comes.
All right. So let's open the public hearing for their comments first, and then we can have staff presentation. Are you comfortable with that, Julia? That particular order?
That's certainly up to you. I will say typically we will go first through the staff presentation.
Great.
But that's entirely at the chair's discretion.
The reason I'm asking is because my written is not that. So let's have staff presentation first on this item.
Okay, great. Thank you. So I am going to go through my presentation. I know that on May 19th, which I know was several months ago, I did go through the presentation as well. So I'm going to go through that again, and I'm going to really focus on the key issues for this particular project. And obviously there is a staff report as well as the associated environmental document and a red line revised resolution that is part of the Planning Commission's packet for today. So starting off, I will note, just as I previously stated, that there is some history on this project. It was originally heard by the Planning Commission on May 16th of 2019. And at that time, the application proposed an 80-foot tall monopine. At that time, staff had recommended denial of the project to the Planning Commission due to concerns regarding the lack of appropriate biological and botanical surveys to support the project and also potential visual impacts. The Planning Commission at that time had continued the application to a date uncertain to allow the applicant to provide a revised proposal for a wireless communication facility at this location. Since that time, the applicant consulted with county staff and the Coastal Commission regarding the visual concerns and submitted a revised design consisting of the currently proposed faux water tower. The applicant also performed updated studies and circulated those studies to the California Department of Fish and Wildlife, the Coastal Commission, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and Sonoma-Mendocino Coast District of the California Department of State Parks for review and concurrence. So as I stated, the project as proposed today is a coastal development use permit to authorize construction and operation of a wireless communication facility consisting of a 76-foot tall faux water tank with various appurtenant equipment and ground equipment, which includes a generator and equipment cabinet. There is also the need to establish access to the site via gravel road and trenching of power and fiber to the site location. The proposed faux water tank will be within a 1,050 square foot fenced compound, and the fencing is proposed to be 6-foot tall redwood fencing on the exterior of that compound. This property is located near the terminus of Kinney Road. It's approximately 1 mile north of the community of Manchester on the west side of State Route 1. It's surrounded to the north, east, and west by Manchester State Park and agricultural lands, as well as additional state park lands to the south of the project site. On the property itself, there is an existing AT&T facility, which is the cable landing station for several trans-Pacific cables. This site is located within a designated highly scenic area and is adjacent to lands that contain federally listed endangered species. It is also located just to the north of lands that are designated prime agricultural land and or under Williamson Act contract. There is existing public access, which is adjacent to the project site along Kinney Road and also at the adjacent Manchester State Park. So the property on which the project is proposed is both classified and zoned as public and semi-public facilities. That's a PF designation. And the site is already developed with the existing cable landing station, which is consistent with the allowable uses. And the proposed wireless communication facility is permissible in the zoning district with the granting of this coastal development use permit. The proposed project is in conformance with the development standards, yard setbacks, and all associated standards for the PF zoning district. So next, I'm going to focus on the two most key issues to this project. That's the visual resources, and then we'll talk about the habitat and natural resource concerns with the site. So regarding visual resources, as I stated, the property is located within a designated highly scenic area. Photo simulations of the proposed facility were provided by the applicant, and I do want to call attention that there was an update memo that was provided to the commission in May of 2022, which included the revised photo simulations and the revisions from what was in the staff report packet to what's in that memorandum were minor. It was really tweaking and making sure that the location of the fenced compound and the water tower were reflective of the most current design. It moved the compound closer to Kinney Road and further away from the state park lands. So I just want to make sure that that's clear in terms of which photo simulations are reviewed, and I'm always happy to share those on the screen if the commission desires later on after I finish my presentation. So this property is in a very highly visible area of the coast, with Manchester State Park bordering the site on the east, west, and north. And the entire area that is west of Highway 1 is highly scenic and subject to those highly scenic area policies. The most pertinent ones applicable to this site are policy 3.5-1 and 3.5-3, which the text of those is provided on page 5 of the staff report if you like to review that, which really just talks about development in highly scenic areas being visually compatible with the surrounding environment. In addition to the policies that are provided in the staff report, the Mendocino County Code provides development criteria for projects within designated highly scenic areas. Coastal views are highly protected, especially from public vantage areas, which includes roads, coastal trails, and parks. And given that the state park is bordering this site on 3 sides, any additional development, regardless of what it is, has the potential to impact the visual character of the area. The applicant had revised the design of the tower from the original monopine design to a faux water tank after consulting with County and Coastal Commission staff. The revised design of the faux water tank is more appropriate for this visible area of the coast, as water towers are a typical feature seen on the Mendocino coast and is more subordinate to the setting than the original monopine design, given that with the monopine design, there were no pine trees in proximity to the proposed tower location. Water towers are a well-known feature of the coast, particularly in the town of Mendocino, but also are present on several other residential and agricultural parcels within the county. As is detailed in the initial study and the draft mitigated negative declaration for this project, the project does have the potential to substantially degrade the existing visual character or quality of public views of the site and its surroundings if there is not mitigation incorporated into the project. The proposed tower will be visible from Manchester State Park and from several vantage points as shown on the photo simulations. On the same property as the proposed tower is the existing AT&T facility with the cable landing station. This facility has a much lower profile than the proposed tower, and as such, it is currently minimally visible from the public vantage points, excluding Kinney Road. From Kinney Road, you can see it, it's right up against the road. It's a very obvious location when you're driving by on Kinney Road. The proposed tower is unable to be smaller in height due to the type of project that it is, as a more reduced tower height would provide less coverage than is already provided. And the primary public views from this area are those that are west towards the ocean. Individuals that are utilizing Manchester State Park will initially see the tower to the south of the parking area, and if they look eastward from the beach. Absent mitigations, including height, color, and design of the tower, impacts to the existing visual quality of the area would be potentially significant. I do want to note that any development of a tower on this property will have an impact on the existing visual quality of the area, but as previously stated, water towers are not an unusual feature to see along the Mendocino coast, and with appropriate mitigations, these impacts can be reduced to less than significant levels. Staff has reviewed the proposed project for consistency with highly scenic area policies and Chapter 20.504, and finds that the faux water tower design is consistent with the local coastal program policies protecting visual resources with mitigation measures incorporated. Visual resources are highly subjective, and as a result can mean that what one individual finds to be subordinate and in character with a particular setting may not be what another individual finds. The photo simulations are provided to the Planning Commission so that the Commission may review the potential visual impact of the proposed tower and make your determination as to whether or not you find it to be within the character and subordinate to the setting. I do want to note, and this is in the staff report on page 6, that the Sonoma-Mendocino Coast District of the California Department of Parks and Recreation remains concerned regarding the potential visual impacts of the proposed project. The California State Parks comment letter is provided as an attachment to the staff report. The Department of Parks and Recreation states that, quotations, does not support locating the telecommunications facility adjacent to Manchester State Park. The 78-foot tall facility would have a direct impact on the open, natural coastal viewshed, and as such, the proposed project is inconsistent with the coastal element of Mendocino County's general plan. Again, that letter in its full text is an attachment to the staff report. So next I'm going to shift to habitats and natural resources. So as I noted, that staff with the original application in 2019 was concerned about the lack of appropriate biological and botanical studies being provided. Since that time, the applicant has provided numerous updated studies, and you'll see those are detailed on page 6 of the staff report. There have been 5 additional studies provided, including an updated biological resource assessment, 2 different responses to comments, a tower avian avoidance plan, as well as an updated tower avian avoidance plan. Based on the initial assessment in September of 2018 and the additional assessment survey in May of 2019, an evaluation for the potential for occurrence of special status plant species and special status wildlife species has been completed. The consultants evaluated the potential for occurrence of special status plant species and special status wildlife species with the initial September 2018 and May 2019 surveys. Out of that, 2 vegetative community types were observed within the study area. The first was Festuca rubra herbaceous alliance, and I'm so sorry if I butchered that name. And the second is the ruderal disturbed vegetation. No targeted special status plant species were identified in the study area during the 2 botanical surveys. Common plant species were observed during field surveys, and the botanical surveys were conducted during the appropriate flowering season for all identified sensitive plant communities. There are, however, some sensitive biological resources which are in proximity to the project site. So that includes western snowy plover, as well as barren silver spot butterfly and the Pointerina mountain beaver. So I think I'm going to focus the most here in talking about the western snowy plover, as that seems to be one of the species of most concern. So the snowy plover is listed as a species of special concern under the state of California and is listed as threatened underneath the Federal Endangered Species Act. The proposed project site is directly west of federally designated critical habitat for the western snowy plover. No western snowy plovers were identified within the proposed project site or the buffer area during biological surveys. This species is likely to be present feeding and nesting on the adjacent Manchester State Beach, approximately 700 feet west of the proposed project site, based upon historical survey data. No habitat for this species is present within the proposed project site. This species has not been documented within the boundaries of or in proximity to the proposed project site. As noted in the submitted studies and comments received from the Coastal Commission and California Department of Fish and Wildlife, the Faux water tank tower has the potential to provide perching habitat for birds of prey, primarily raptors, including but not limited to peregrine falcons and or Merlin falcons. And these birds of prey could potentially prey on the western snowy plovers or other special status bird species that may be present on or near Manchester State Beach. So to reduce this potential significant impact to less than significant levels, a mitigation measure is required to have AT&T install bird deterrent devices on the proposed telecommunications tower to discourage birds of prey from landing and or nesting. This is where the tower avian avoidance plan, as updated in August of 2021, will be required to be implemented, and compliance with the prepared plan is made a condition of approval and mitigation measure to ensure birds of prey are not able to use the tower as predator perch. The tower avian avoidance plan was reviewed by U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, California Department of Fish and Wildlife, California State Parks, and the California Coastal Commission. Jenny Hutchinson, who is the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service Western Snowy Plover lead for Del Norte, Humboldt, and Mendocino counties, responded on October 27th of 2021 to county staff that she had reviewed the design and associated measures for surveying and reporting and do not have concerns that the updated tower design will serve as a perch for western snowy plover predators. Next, I'll discuss the barren silver spot butterfly. Again, the silver spot butterfly is listed as an endangered species under the Federal Endangered Species Act. There is a recovery plan adopted in 2016. The primary food plant for this species, which is the blue violet, has not been observed on the proposed project site or buffer area. As a result, no impacts to this species are expected as a result of the project, and U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service did not have any concerns regarding potential impacts to that species. Pointerina mountain beaver is also a federally listed endangered species since 1991. And the no individuals of Pointerina mountain beaver populations or tunnel burrow systems were identified within the proposed project site or buffer area during biological surveys, but the potential exists that the species could be established within the proposed project site or buffer area prior to project implementation. In email correspondence with Greg Schmidt of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, He commented that he surveyed the entire biological survey area in 2019 and resurveyed the area 2 additional times since that time. And no Point Arena Mountain Beaver Burrow entrances were observed by him anywhere on the AT&T parcel or adjacent state land that was located within the biological survey area. Mr. Schmidt concluded that the take of Point Arena Mountain Beaver due to tower installation and maintenance is unlikely. So I do want to note that CDFW has provided comment on the project. Initially, there had been some concerns regarding the identification of one of the grassland areas. However, those concerns have been addressed and they had no additional comments beyond those previously provided. The various surveys completed for the project identified no environmentally sensitive habitat area present within the project footprint that may be impacted by the proposed development. Adequate buffers are established from any identified sensitive habitat within proximity to the project location. Protective measures are included as noted in the preceding sections, with some requiring additional pre-construction surveys for possible resources. Mitigation measures, including Bio 1 through Bio 9, are included within the draft resolution for consideration by the Planning Commission to ensure that impacts are reduced to less than significant levels. So those are two of the key issues associated with the project. The staff report goes on to discuss hazards management in terms of potential seismic activity, flooding, tsunami, fire hazard, as well as grading, erosion, and runoff, cultural resources, groundwater resources, and transportation and circulation. I think the two most key to the consideration by the commission, though, are the visual resources and the natural resources and habitats present on the property. I do know that there was, as part of our completion of the initial study for the project, that when we sent it out for comment with state agencies, we did get a comment back from the Department of Toxic Substances regarding the determination that had been within the initial study that the site was not located on any Cortese list site. So as you will see in the red line resolution that was provided for today's meeting, in finding number 4, staff has addressed their comments and states that the site is listed on a Cortese list as there was a cleanup action. However, there still is no impact as the case has been closed and no further action recommended. And in addition, the area of this proposed project is not within proximity to where the underground leaking storage tank had previously been located. Staff has found that recirculation of the mitigated negative declaration is not required, as the new information is merely added to clarify the mitigated negative declaration and make insignificant modifications. I do want to note, as we discussed on August 18th, that staff had requested a continuance of the item in order to be able to review the additional information that was submitted by the applicant regarding alternative sites analysis. That was provided in the first memorandum to the Planning Commission, and that does not change staff's recommendation at this time. And then staff also provided, and I apologize for the late timing of that, the original alternatives analysis that was completed, and that's what's contained within the second memorandum for today's meeting. So with that, the only other change I want to note within the resolution is a correction to condition of approval 38, which would be ensuring that this permit would have a full 10-year period if granted by the commission. And I'll close with stating that staff's recommendation is that the Planning Commission at this time adopt a mitigated negative declaration and grant the coastal development use permit as proposed by the applicant based on the facts and findings and subject to the conditions of approval and mitigation measures as specified in the red line resolution for today's meeting. And I do see that Deputy County Counsel has raised his hand to provide some additional comment on this item. Oh, you're on mute.
So Deputy County Counsel Matthew Kudrowski. I want to provide some commentary on what's happened since May in regarding this project and the continuances that have been asked for and sought kind of by both parties, I would say. Just prior to the May 17th or the May meeting, there was a letter from AT&T that reviewed two specific aspects of federal law regarding this project. The first was that any governmental decision on a tower must be authorized by applicable local regulations and supported by a reasonable amount of evidence. That their letter cautioned that any denial of an application needs to state specific reasons, both consistent with local regulations and supported by substantial evidence in the record. I'll note that case law on this point provides that substantial evidence is a deferential inquiry by the federal courts, and a local decision will not be returned so long as it is supported by a reasonable amount of evidence, which is between a scintilla, but not necessarily a preponderance of evidence. That's case law, not just me saying scintilla. Second, the letter reviewed the effective prohibition preemption under U.S. Code, FCC rulings, and relevant case law. And in particular, the letter stated that where a provider demonstrated a significant gap in coverage and the proposed facility would provide the least intrusive means of filling that gap, the local government would be unable to deny the permit. And it noted that there was a burden shifting, for evidence at a certain point in time, where following the showing of the provider, the burden then shifts to the local government to prove that a less intrusive alternative exists, that it fills the gap in coverage and is technically feasible. So following receipt of the letter, the staff asked, the initial letter, staff asked for a continuance to review it. And one of the questions we had between us and PBS staff was, did we have enough to say that this burden had shifted at this point to the county based on the alternative site analysis that the staff had in its files and that was uploaded yesterday to show what was there initially for the commission. And as far as in reviewing these issues in relevant case law and what was provided before us earlier this month, we can't say for certain, at least I can't say for certain, that threshold has been met. There is no showing of any kind of change what the actual coverages would be between the sites from either the initial analysis or the current one. And so in terms of the evidence we have in front of us today, I would say that at the moment, there was essentially a politely worded threat in the letter regarding any kind of, inability to deny this permit. And based on what we have in front of us, both initially and as updated, I can't say that meets the standard that I'm seeing in case law.
Matthew Kudowski, I have a question. So could you just repeat your last part of that sentence?
So based on what I'm seeing,
clarify that.
Well, based on what I'm seeing in case law in terms of when the burden shifts to local government as part of this test, based on what's been provided to us, even with the updated site analysis, I don't see that there being enough data provided there to necessarily put the county in a position of being unable to deny this permit. Note that case law does show that I think in other cities and counties that face this, whatever happens at this kind of lower procedural level at the planning commission, I've seen that this may be remedied at some point before it goes to an appeal, in front of whatever body that is. So based on what we have in front of us today, while I appreciate the comparison of the sites, the effort that was made, but looking at those issues, I'm not sure there's enough data that's provided to give the county enough to compare between this site and the other sites, such that it reaches the level of being unable to deny.
All right. So that said, I'm inviting questions from commissioners for staff. Does any commissioner have any question for staff at this time? I don't see any hands.
My hand was up.
Okay, I don't see it on my computer, sorry.
That's fine, no problem. So I had two questions. I don't know what the typical size of a normal water tower is, but the ones that I see around Mendocino are usually less than 3 stories in height. And so this tower looks like it would be 6 stories in height. And I was wondering if staff could point to any water tower that's like a traditional looking water tower in Mendocino County that is this tall.
I don't have an example off the top of my head. Generally, you are correct. Like in the town of Mendocino, they're typically, I think, less than like 35 feet. I think that would probably be the tallest. So I don't know that I have a particular example here to be able to point to off the top of my head without doing more research.
Okay, that's fair. I just thought maybe you knew, but it's a stab in the dark for sure. And then I was also wondering if the applicant had ever tried to co-locate with either of the other two towers in the area. I don't see any evidence in the record that they tried to do that. There's a US Cellular tower, and then there's another tower south. So do you have any information about that?
There is some information about co-location and why it was not feasible within the alternative site analysis. It's called the project support statement that staff provided to the commission yesterday. And I would think that might be best answered by the applicant and their agent team as well as to what they had looked at and why it is or is not feasible.
Okay, thanks.
Any other commissioner has any questions for staff? Commissioner Pollan.
Thank you, Vice Chair Wiedemann. Just a question around, I'm looking at the coverage maps that were provided, the existing coverage map and the proposed one. And I note that in the inland areas, at least along the Highway 1, it does appear as if in the current area there are some gaps in coverage. But I'm also noting there's a significant increase in coverage along the coastal area with the new proposed tower. Are we required to provide any coastal access to wireless technology as a part of the first responder system, or just in our analysis of appropriateness and coverage, the need for coverage?
I'm not, let's see, I'm not quite sure how to answer that. I'll do my best here. So, certainly that can be a consideration made by the commission in terms of the appropriateness of a tower, in terms of the public benefit that it may provide. We do have requirements, and that's detailed within the conditions of approval, of ensuring that there is space provided on the tower for first responders and emergency services, so they could locate on the tower if they needed to as well. But I think that's about the extent of what I can really provide in response to that.
Okay, well, you might not be able to answer this question either then, but again, on the coverage map, there's the current coverage and then there's the proposed coverage, but it almost looks as if based on the towers that are there, there's a AT&T mobility tower to the north of the site, and it almost on the existing coverage map, it looks, from what we can see on there, that it provides no coverage. Or is it what we're seeing that's on the lower half near the proposed site that is the reliable coverage outdoors only? Is that currently being provided by that tower to the north?
Yes, I believe so. I believe it's already being provided, that the tower that is, I think you see the two towers on the existing coverage where it says the approved wireless communications facilities. There's the US Cellular tower, and then there's the Center Valley Cable tower that you see. Those ones are the ones that are likely providing the service currently to that area. The one that you see up to the north is a proposed tower which has not been approved or constructed.
How far out in the planning process is that tower?
Well, the application still has some outstanding studies that need to be provided. So it's hard for me to give an exact definitive on that particular tower location.
Right. And we don't have any assessment on, if that were to be approved, what the coverage would be in this area.
I will see, I'll take a look while you continue on with your discussion to see if I can find a map within that file that may have been provided as of yet. But like I said, since we haven't queued that up for any sort of hearing, I may not quite have that prepared. And the applicant may be able to speak more to it. I know there's been a little bit of, I guess I should say, sort of discussion between the original proposer of that tower and the property owner as to who is actually bringing that tower forward at this time. I understand that the original applicant may no longer be interested in pursuing that particular tower location, but the property owner is. So that one is a little bit more dicey there. I do also
Right.
want to, one of the main purposes of the currently proposed tower is also to provide high-speed internet services to this area of the coast. And, this is certainly something that has been, it's a need along the coast and many of our regions throughout the county, not just the coastal area, and is something that has been, regularly supported through, policy statements by the Board of Supervisors to ensure that there is access to high-speed internet for, all members of the county. So.
Right. We haven't heard anything at least in the record that we've seen so far, it seems as if the universal feeling, at least from those that have voiced it, is one of opposition to this tower. And we haven't had any public comment of people saying that they're unable to access high-speed internet that would then be able to. And I guess I am curious about that proposed tower to the north, because I don't know, but I have to imagine it is in a less contentious location than this current proposed facility.
I see your hand, Commissioner Jones, but let me just answer something on Commissioner Pollan's question. I know this area very personally. I have walked this area probably for many, many years. And what I want to say is I have cell coverage walking that beach. I have cell coverage in that area and on my cell phone, and use that for certain emergencies that we saw in the area. So I just want to give you, it's not without coverage. Right. Okay. Commissioner Jones, you had your hand up. I see it now.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Diana. I was also following up on Cliff's question, because I was also curious about the coverage, and I would encourage all the commissioners to just Google while you're at your computer, mobile LTE coverage map. And this is produced by the federal government, and it provides the coverage for all the carriers. You can zoom into the Manchester Beach area.
No, Mr. McCarter.
And select all of the different.
What's up?
Hey, Cliff, you got to mute your thing.
It still is. Yeah, I sent you a message back. Apparently didn't get it.
Cliff, mute your thing.
Okay.
There you go. Good job. At any rate, you can click through Verizon, US Cellular, T-Mobile, and AT&T, and it looks like US Cellular provides coverage for all the areas that would propose to be covered under the AT&T communication site. So I just thought that was an interesting way to get additional information about coverage. And the map for AT&T coverage is very similar to the map that's provided by the applicant. So it gives me some reasonable sense that it might be accurate.
All right. Do we have any other questions from any other commissioner for staff at this time? Matt, County Council.
Thank you.
I
Through
see
the chair, I just had 2 quick comments in response to some of the comments just made. One, if we want to look at the maps online, I would recommend doing that as part of the public hearing, not just Googling and doing it on each of the screens. I think we'd have to do that to actually get that into the record. Second, I would also caution that we can't rely on the fact that one company has coverage in an area to deny it to others. That, I think, would be specifically disallowed under FCC rules and regulations. So the fact that one carrier might have coverage in the beach, I don't know, the chair's covered carrier, but this, you can't discriminate against carriers and say one's got it, they can use that. So I would advise against reviewing that discussion, or having that discussion.
Right, and this, my comment for the record was just expressing I have gotten cell coverage continually in along that area, most of the area. That's all. Okay. Seeing that we have no other hands raised for the commission, now I'm going to open it up to the applicant.
Okay, great. We have Jared Kersley, who is an agent of the project. We're going to go ahead and bring him over to allow him to speak. We also have Donna Davis with AT&T External Affairs. And Jared and Donna, please just let me know if at any point you want me to pull over. It looks like there may be consultants associated with the project also available on the line, and we can always bring them in at any time.
Thank you. Hello, commissioners. My name is Jared Kersley on behalf of AT&T. Are you guys able to hear me okay?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. That hit most of the spots, just about all of them. It's hard to add to that presentation. However, a few questions were raised regarding coverage and co-location opportunities. There is 2 known existing sites in somewhat of the vicinity. One is to the south in Point Arena area up on a more or less a ridge line. And then one is to the southeast, which is the US Cellular site that was expressed. AT&T is currently located on that Point Arena site, and their coverage basically dissipates and runs out where you guys' coverage map is more or less showing. There's a hairpin turn in the little community called Flumeville, where AT&T drops calls around that turn. And then once you start heading north, travels north along Highway 1, the signal dissipates and gets weaker, travel north. There is not a close by site to the north. So the main gap in coverage that they are trying to fill is picking up in that town of Flumeville, which is where the drop calls exist, and filling that gap, and then as far north as possible. The US Cellular site to the northeast is too far to the northeast and too close to the site in Point Arena that it was not a viable option as a co-location opportunity. More so, site to the north, the proposed site I think you guys are alluding to is no longer active to my knowledge. If it's the one near Irish Beach community, that is no longer active. So that begs the question, the need for this site even further. This site is uniquely placed. I think we all could see that and admit that. It begs the question, why not go to the east of Highway 1 to the ridge line? And we asked that question to the radio frequency engineers with AT&T and said, you know, the site maybe up on more elevated could serve better instead of being next to the beach. And to the contrary of what we think that would be logical, it's actually the site next to the cable station performs so much better to a site to the east of Highway 1 or north of Highway 1, northeast of Highway 1. And the reason is because of the viewpoint of Highway 1 that you could obtain from being adjacent to that cable station. It sees up and down the highway much better than any site more inland or even up on a ridge because of all the hills that would interrupt the signal going north and south. So they are wanting to proceed with this cable station based on the existing gap in coverage and the performance of the site at the cable station opposed to a site more inland or north. So that's why we entertained alternative sites recently and sent out mailers to a few properties that we would think would meet zoning and planning wireless guideline requirements, i.e., setbacks and land use, so and so forth. Out of those properties that we contacted, a few expressed interest. After those few expressed interest, we had the radio frequency engineer run propagation maps, and they did not perform as well as the cable station, which is why we decided to move forward with the cable station as the primary project location. Hopefully that answers the questions so far. We do have Geist Environmental Engineering on the line as well. He's a consultant that perform the biological surveys and the perching prevention design. So if there's any other questions that I could help answer, I'd be happy to. If not, I'll defer to them for that aspect.
Chair,
Yep.
Let's hear for the next applicant speaker, then we'll open up questions.
Okay, I'd like to
So-
invite Steve Geist.
Okay, we're gonna go ahead and bring Mr. Geist over.
Steve Geist here on behalf of the AT&T, and we've been retained to assist AT&T and to do surveys and studies at this facility. We also have our biologist Cord on that can answer any biological questions. If anyone has any questions about the tower design, because this during the planning process has changed from a monotree to a water tower design. And one of the items we designed with the water tank was the avian avoidance plan. And we feel that it's one of the better designs to deal with the location that it's at and avoid conditions with avian occurrences. I can go over the design, or if anyone has any questions about the tower avoidance plan, or if anyone has biology questions, then I'll bring Cord on. One of the reasons why we retained Cord was he was actually a biologist a number of years ago during the AT&T Marine installation of the cables through the beach, and was part of the restoration out there. So Cord has number of years of experience working at this facility prior to this assessment. And of course, he's been involved in an assessment since. So either I can answer any questions or Cord can answer questions.
And does the applicant have any other speaker first before we ask questions?
No, we're okay.
I think Donna Davis has her hand up.
Oh, okay.
I do. Good morning, Commissioners. Donna Davis with AT&T External Affairs. I just wanted to kind of circle back and make sure we talked about a few points with this site. First of all, I don't know that we mentioned that this site will also include FirstNet, which is the dedicated public safety network. And I know many of you that we've been on previous calls, we've kind of discussed the benefits of having that dedicated coverage for public safety, being a beach area, being a campground, having that cell coverage in case of emergency can be the matter of life and death, basically. I know earlier this year, a Board of Supervisors meeting, Chief Latoufe out of Mendocino had mentioned that the number 2 reason for calls that they have there, the 911, had to do with water rescue. And so the coverage here along the beach is a public safety benefit. And as Jared mentioned, the location here of this site extends that coverage quite a bit along the beach, just because of the layout of the land and the way that the coverage would project. So I didn't want to leave us without kind of talking about the importance there of that critical coverage. And so, and it's always important that, you know, maybe you don't only have one carrier, that you have multiple carriers, and that coverage is in case of 911, because as we've mentioned before, regardless of your carrier, if you're making a 911 call, if there's a cell tower for another provider and not yours, or something goes down with your cell provider in that location, that 911 call is able to be picked up by another provider. So I just want to make sure we made some key points with respect to public safety. Thanks.
All right. From any more comment from the applicant before I open it up to the commission for questions?
Jared Kearsey here on behalf of AT&T. I think we're okay. Thank you.
All right. So to the commissioners, my fellow commissioners, are there any questions, comments to the applicant? Commissioner Pollan?
Thank you, Vice Chair Wiedemann. I had a question for the biological consultant. The Sonoma-Mendocino Coast District of the State Parks posed a few questions in their letter that I'd love to hear your response to as it relates to the western snowy plover. It's stated in the avian plan that there be in Bio 1 that the plan include language if a large bird or raptor is observed on the tower, facility improvements are observed, please contact the assigned AT&T the same day the observation as soon as possible. And the Department of Parks asked these following questions: that who would be observing that tower? Is this the DPR staff, the public, or AT&T? And at what frequency is the tower being monitored? Will these observations be documented in the report? And what is the recourse if observation is seen there by perching raptors?
So I think we're gonna need to bring over Ward from, yes, thank you.
Steve Geist has his hand up, or had it.
So the Geist Engineering Environmental Group, we've been retained by AT&T, and we've designed and you know, we're not even sure we'll be the consultant when this tower is built if it's approved. But AT&T retained a third-party environmental consultant to do a few things, and part of that would be monitor before construction starts. There would be monitoring. During construction, there would be monitoring, and post-construction, there would be an initial monitoring. There would also be annual monitoring. In addition, per the avoidance plan, there'd be very clear, usually when technicians have to arrive to the tower, they would have to sign in and they'd be made aware of the conditions and controls that are in place. And if ever there are any problems, they would be made to call. Right now, the initial, if the tower is approved and built, the initial biological monitoring would occur post-tower to verify the conditions, avoidance control conditions are working. So this would be a multi-step plan that would be adaptable for this tower, but right now it'd be pre, during, and post-construction. And then AT&T would have their environmental consultant of record verify that the tower avoidance plan and mitigation measures are working.
Just a quick follow-up on that. So the post construction observation, do you know when that would be taking place relative to the completion of construction?
Yeah, well, on a broad scope, but the plan would be done every year, and that plan would verify that the design controls for the avoidance were maintained and in place and not broken down with weather or abuse or whatever it may be. And I don't have an answer because after the post initial construction, that the consultant of record would offer recommendations on what the monitoring would need to be.
And when you say annual monitoring, we're talking a once a year. And from what it sounds like, it's a once a year annual monitoring of the structure itself to see if the deterrents that have been put in place are still present. But I'm not hearing there's a monitoring process that's in place for, visual ongoing monitoring of whether or not raptors are utilizing that structure as a perch or not. Is that correct?
Yeah, that the reason why that'll be determined post completion of the tower if it's approved, and the biological consultant of record would make a recommendation, whether it be during the avian nesting season, prior to it, post, that there would be a recommendation for additional monitoring as determined by the site conditions. So, once the tower is constructed, there would be numerous hours completed, whether it be remote observation or on-site observation.
When you say remote observation, are they anticipating putting cameras or some sort of device for remote monitoring on an ongoing basis on the structure?
That's not part of the plan right now, but that is potentially an option for us to increase our bandwidth for just trying to keep a tab on the tower and determine. But initially, it would be in person, and if there's concerns raised, then we would take a more aggressive monitoring point of view.
And can you describe just in basic terms what the avian avoidance structures look like? Are they sort of like the spikes that you see places to keep pigeons from perching, or what is actually is affixed to the water tower itself?
Sure. So the water tower design is one of the better designs for this area, and I'll just break the tower up into 3 zones. It'll be the tower top, the tower side, and the leg support. So 3 zones. Starting at the bottom, there's tower legs, and if there were no control measures in place, those would potentially offer a perching habitat for raptors. And what we're going to do at that level is we're going to install a type of netting on the lower 2/3 of the tower that birds cannot, they won't be able to land on the horizontal or diagonals. So they'll be restricted from landing. So that's the lower third. It would be the upper 2/3 would be surrounded with this net. It's not very visible from far away. Up close, you can see it. You can, and even at the tower, between the legs, the netting will be concealed or enclosed, so that the lower area has control measures. Then there's the tower tank itself. That will be a vertical paneling, and there will not be perching zones on that area. So that's the first lower level. That's the mid tower, and now we have the tower top. The tower top will not have a solid top. It will have 2 control measures in place. Around the rim, as you suggested, there'll be large spikes around the diameter of the tower. And for the tower top, it'll be open with, once again, this netting below the support members. And for any of the support members, they would also have spikes going up to the top. So imagine like the radius from the outside to the center. If there's a support member, there would have spikes to the top. So that's the tower top. I can go into more details, but we've kind of broken it down and looked for the potential for perching zones, and we've designed this to eliminate the perching zones on this tower.
Thank you. I have another question regarding alternative site location, but I see Commissioner Jones has her hand up, and so maybe I'll pause for now and let her get in, and I'll jump back in.
Or Cliff, you might ask.
Oh, okay. I might. So, okay, on the alternative sites that were more recently evaluated, I noticed that there was one that was relatively close to this site. I believe it was on McKinney Road. And that was a site that there had been an expression by the landowner of willingness to do a siting there. And I know that it was stated earlier by the applicant that the alternative sites, when they were analyzed by the radio frequency engineers, were not as optimal as this current site. But I guess I'm just curious, how much difference was there. Again, this particular site is a very contentious location, and so yeah, I wonder what the sort of the trade-off would be in terms of coverage at a different location that's not right there overlooking the beach. And I don't know if you have that actual data to share, but if you do, or any just a summary of it, that would be helpful to understand.
Hi, Jared Kearsley here on behalf of AT&T. We don't have a depiction of the coverage comparison as requested. I think you're alluding to Lazy Land's property. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I believe that's the one. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I was trying to find those other. This is going on so long. I've got about 6 packets with material for this one, so I'm trying to find all the documents. But I believe that is the correct one.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, when the two other properties or so, 2 or 3 other properties that were examined, that the ones that expressed interest, they performed less up the highway and shoreline. Of course, they're going to perform inland just as well, but they didn't perform as well up the highway to the one and the shoreline. I don't have exact measurements of what's the difference, or square miles or what have you. It just was noted that they were less than the site that's proposed on a cable station, and thus were deemed not necessarily viable.
So I guess that's my question, is like, what's the sort of criteria for viability? And obviously, from a radio frequency engineer perspective, you're going to want the site that propagates the best, but is there what's the sort of the cutoff to say that this is just not a site that would work at all? I don't know, do you have, again, that's sort of a global question that maybe is hard to answer, but I'm just trying to evaluate that.
Yeah, Jared Kearsley here again. I understand the difficultiness of evaluating that. It's this is a relatively gray area in a sense. I understand that. It does become black and white in other instances where it infringes too closely to another site, or it just clearly doesn't cover the gap that is needing to be covered. In this case, in our case here, there's 2 main goals here: is to cover the gap in coverage to the south that is cut off from the tower in Point Arena, and then as far north as possible up the highway. And as soon as you go more inland, even if it's Lazy Lands LLC, which is not in our, in a logical mind, it's not that far from the cable station, in the RF world, if you will. It did make a considerable enough difference to not pursue not only that property, but either the ones to the north as well.
Okay, well, thank you. That's what I have for now. Appreciate your comments.
Yep.
Commissioner Jones, you had your hand up.
Yeah, sorry. This is a complicated project, and so there's kind of a lot of moving pieces in it for us to deliberate on. So I appreciate the applicant's patience with all of our questions. I was curious when the alternative site analysis was completed.
Hi, Jared Kearsley here. Yeah, no problem. It is a complicated project, and we're here to help in any way, shape, and form. Are you speaking about the more robust alternative site analysis, or the
Yeah,
original?
it's one that we received. It's got a memo coverage of September 1st, but the actual study itself doesn't have a date that it was published. So I was just curious when it was done.
We sent out, this Jared Kearsley again, AT&T, we sent out our expressions of interest in late June, gave them time to respond, and then as the responses came in, we conducted the reasonable research for the alternatives, and then I believe it was sent over in mid-August, if I recall. No, I'm sorry, early August, I believe. I don't have the exact date.
So essentially this summer, that's fine. I just wanted
Yes,
to know
yes,
if
it was recent.
it was current.
Yes.
And then in reviewing it, one of the things that stuck out to me was it seems like you're kind of weighing two things. One is what your coverage is, and the other is how many residents there are and whether or not it would be aesthetically impactful. And I just want to encourage you to think about this in a slightly different way, and that is the number of people who would have to look at this rather than residences. I think there are so many campers and users of the park that I think the potential aesthetic impact is actually greater there than it would be on, 6 or 7 residences that are located nearby. So I guess I'm poking holes, if you will, in that as a criteria. It doesn't seem like I think it would be a good criteria if you weren't proposing this project right next to a state park where it's so visibly impactful from the beach and the surrounding area. But that is what you're doing. So I think in terms of your thinking about alternative locations, maybe having a broader view would be a good idea. And then I had a really weird technical question about the netting. One of the things that was a little frustrating for me is nowhere in our packet is the raptor avoidance plan included. So I couldn't really look at it or think about it from an objective perspective. So I have 2 questions. One is, what raptors is it designed against? Like if you could just list all the birds, and maybe it's all the birds on the planet, I don't know. But is it designed to deter certain types of birds or all types of birds?
This is Cord
Steve
here.
Geist. There's Steve Geist has his hand up, and then Cord Hughes.
Yeah.
I'll let Cord go first.
Okay.
Just going to say it covers, there's a number of raptor species that can occur out there. So it covers more than one species. I mean, I'd have to put a list together, but, there's red-tailed hawks. There's, you do get ospreys out there. There's a number of different species. So it covers.
Do you feel like it would be effective against ravens or crows?
I think, yes. So the measures we have there would definitely cover them as well.
And then my last question is our sort of twofold question. What is the netting made out of? And is there any concern that birds would get caught in it and fall into their own sort of trouble in that way?
I defer to Steve on this question. I know he has information on
that. Steve here, Steve Geist for AT&T. So the actual design that we picked, it's a knotted bird netting. It's black in color, and the net is in the shape of a square, and each square is approximately 3/4 of an inch tall and wide.
And is that a metal material, or is it a fabric material or a nylon?
It is not a metal. It's Nixolite, which is weather resistant. It does, I think it's 75 pounds breaking strength, and it's a 12 ply high density polyethylene string, to call it simple. So it's flexible.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want it rigid. We don't want any perching or landing abilities. So the birds cannot get through it. And this is.
And do you think there's any entanglement risk in it or not? Like bird entanglement risk?
Yeah, based on my experience, the risk is there, but I would say it'd be very low. This is used, it's made in the United States. It's used on architectural and industrial properties. And zoos across the U.S. And yeah, I would say that it's very low potential for a bird to be snagged in this netting.
And if I may, for the benefit of the commission and the public, the updated avian avoidance plan was posted and is publicly available on the agenda for the original hearing, the May 19th, 2022 hearing. So it can be viewed as an attachment there.
And I feel like we saw those diagrams at one point with one of our packets. I don't know if it was just online or not, but I do remember seeing some of those with the different diagrams of different types of spikes and the netting used. I just couldn't remember in which packet it came with. So
they are reflected in the attachments to the staff report.
Great.
All right. I'm gonna, Commissioner Babini, do you have any questions for the applicant?
I don't. I think all of the questions I had were answered with Commissioner Pollin's questions that he had for the biologics. But thank you.
All right. I have a few questions. Pardon?
I'm sorry, I think we just got a little bit of feedback here. There we go.
Okay. I have a few questions for the applicant. I was looking on the diagrams for the tower itself, and I want to talk a little bit about the tower. The tower is not, from my perspective, my background is I'm an architect, licensed architect. Most of the water towers around the coast are in height, anywhere from 8 to about 16 feet at the tallest. Your tower, if I believe, is 36 to 40 feet tall, just not the tower, the water tank. What's not showing is, I see you have a 22-foot wide base, 22, maybe 23-foot wide base, where your 4 posts holding the vertical post for the tank, the structure holding the tank. I don't get the diameter of the tank. So I'm asking the designer, what is the diameter of the tank? I didn't see that in any of the documents.
Jared Kearsley here. Give me a minute while I pull up the document, or if Julia has it available to share on the screen, we could go to the bird's eye view.
Yeah, just give me just one moment here.
Yeah.
I'm just getting to the right view here.
I don't think it's listed on in my package, the actual diameter of the tank. I was looking, but I could be corrected. And I'm just going to keep talking a little bit. The actual structures inside the RU, I think they're RU, the receivers, they are inside this tank, correct? On this pipe.
This is Jared Kearsley. Yes, you might be alluding to RRUs, the remote radio units.
Yes.
They're
Interior.
square. They're interior. Yes.
And what I want to say is then I think your proposed drawing should say section, or they should be dashed rather than elevations. It would be clearer. I actually thought at first they were on the outside. Just information. Did you find the diameter, please?
This is Jared Kearsley. I'm pulling up the drawings as we speak. 1 second, please.
And Jared, I have the pictures that I can share on the screen. I'm just not quite which one's going to be the most helpful.
I think it probably is somewhere around 18 to 19 feet based on the proportions, but I don't have a scale, scale drawing size.
Yeah, you are correct. It's approximately between 18 and 19 feet.
Right. Okay.
Wide.
So we have a 18 to 19 foot wide water tank that is, and what was the height of that water tank?
It is 30, well, so the actual material, it is 30 feet. That's shown on the elevation sheet A6.
Yeah, so Well, no, it's 76 feet.
With the-
What is
the
the size
water
of the
depth.
tank?
It's 30 feet.
Right, so we got a 30-foot tank. I thought it was 36, but I could be wrong when I did my math. But that said, we have something 30 feet plus by 19 feet wide, standing perched from that's highly visible from lots of the areas that you present in your package, that we have the views, whether from the beach. The one view that you didn't take, which I thought was interesting, we have a national seashore site at the south, Stornetta, Point Arena Lighthouse. You will be able to see this looking north from a National Historic Monument site. And I say that in the sense that that would have been really, I think, worth it to put in the package. Like I say, I know this area really well. It's my district I represent. And I appreciate the work trying to make this work going forward. I just want people to understand the visual size of this proposal. That said, I see Steve Geist has his hand up.
And also just maybe at some point we need to remember to open the public hearing to other people as well.
Oh,
We had
we
a
will.
lot of back and forth without letting
Right.
the public talk.
No, we will. But this is complicated and it has a lot of layers. So Steve, you had your hand up?
Sorry, I think that was just left over. I was just trying
Okay.
to help you give you the width of the tower.
Okay, thank you so much for answering that. And let me just, the other point that I found for the biologist and the avian, you know, the swans, it's a flyway for the swans because they go to the wetlands at Biaggi's every winter. And then they go to Davies Lake, which is right to the north, which you show, but nobody ever mentioned in the dialogue swans. And it's known as a viewing area. So I just want to give that information. And now with that, I would say, are there any other questions to the applicant by commissioners? Seeing none, I will open up the public hearing. And Julia, do we have?
Yes, we do. So Anna Marie Weibel has submitted a request to provide telecomment, and we're going to bring her over to allow her to talk. Anna Marie, just unmute yourself when you're ready and I'll begin the timer.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello? Okay. Please deny this MND. My reasons stated since May 2019 as a signer of the petition signed by 49 local people are the highly scenic area, aesthetics, and lack of protection for endangered species. The photo simulation do not cover the view from the ocean, from Point Arena Lighthouse and all the way to Irish Beach and multiple points along Highway 1. This property is next to the ocean on the longest undeveloped stretch of continuous sandy beach on the Mendo coast. AT&T's coverage map does not consider T-Mobile's 4G LTE shoreline highway site, nor services by further reach, satellite dishes, low orbit satellites, cell towers on ocean floor. I believe there is no gap. Adding FirstNet is not in accordance with our county's wireless guidelines. It does not protect health, safety, comfort, and general welfare. And the biostudies are more than 2 years old. This site does not protect sensitive receptors, the children and others who camp at the campgrounds. The fake water tower, not built with redwood, is in the Pacific Flyway Zone. The steel pipe spikes only prevent big raptors from using it, not protective of visual resources, this tower. And the lawyer believes that this tower is subordinate to character of setting and consistent for preserving visual resources, which it's not. And also that the mentioned by county council mentioned the answer. I support the letter from Department of Parks and Rec, which lists problems with Coastal Act, LCP, visual resources, policies 351, 353, 354, and impacts to ESHA and federal and state endangered species. This project is also not consistent with section 30001 and 3001.5 of the Coastal Act. And I also support the letters by Tim Bray and Dave Bankston of the local Audubon Society. Tim questions measures AES 1, Bio 3, and standard condition number 39. And also the redwood fence makes no sense next to a diesel storage and on a one-way, on a dead-end road in a moderate fire danger zone. And please deny this project. No matter how much lipstick you put on this pig, it is still a pig. David Bankston's letter was not included. And
that was time. I'm unsure if the chair wants me to allow the commenter to continue. I'm sorry, you're on mute, Diana.
I would give, it's been such a long process, one more minute.
Okay, excellent. So Ms. Weibel, if you heard that, the chair has given you another minute to continue speaking.
Okay, thank you very much. So I heard that information was submitted to the staff and public yesterday. I didn't look at the staff report again because it seemed to me it was always the same staff report, basically. And I have another question. How will the utilities be extended? The application does not clarify. We don't want to have a repeat of what happened on Navarro Ridge, where poles and cables were posted in the scenic road without the commission or the public knowing about it. And that issue still hasn't been clarified, and it's been, since 2019. So also the swans that were mentioned, they can always be seen when they're around by the Garcia River, the black swans. And I really hope that this project will be denied. There's too many reasons.
I think we've had, you're done with your extension time, speaker. Thank you.
So it looks like we have one other person on the line here. If they would like to provide public comment, please use the raise hand feature that's located at the bottom of your screen. It may be underneath something titled reactions. Or if you're on a telephone, it is *9 to raise your hand. And I'm not seeing that their hand is being raised, but we'll keep an eye out if they do raise their hand here. They might be just having trouble finding the button. Includes all the members of the public that we have on the line. So.
All right. Then I am going to, I want to ask, is there any final remarks from staff?
I will note that I have been listening to the discussion from particularly between Commissioner Paulin addressing the state parks comment letters. So if the commission wishes to move towards approval of the project, I do have some recommended language to add to the bio mitigation bio 1 that would address some of the concerns that were expressed by state parks, that I would be more than happy to share on the screen at your pleasure. So.
All right. Seeing that there's no other final remarks, then to the commission, my fellow commission, do you have any questions for staff or the applicant at this point? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing. And now the matter is before the commission. Public comment is no longer permitted. I invite a motion from the commission.
I think, Diana, maybe since this is your district, don't we usually defer to whoever's district it is in to make the first motion?
I think I would pass because I'm vice chair, and I think I'm going to entertain it from one of the other commissioners. I would. But.
So after hearing the staff presentation and reviewing all of the mitigation features that are in place, and hearing from the applicant in their assessment of, where this facility would be best located, that there's already a site, they're already using this site. I actually would make a motion to approve the resolution of the Planning Commission, County of Mendocino, State of California, adopting the mitigated negative declaration and granting the coastal development use permit for the 76-foot tall wireless communication tower.
Is there a second for that motion? Seeing that there's no second, I think the motion fails. Is there another motion?
So I could take a stab at this unless you want to, Cliff. You don't want to, you want me to do it? Nice, thank you. So I would move that we direct staff to develop an alternative resolution, making findings for denial of the application based on its conflict with LCP policies around visual impacts to a highly scenic corridor and public parks and state beaches. I think that's probably a sufficient motion, but I'll defer to Julia to see or to Matthew if they think I need to add further reasons. Do you want me to quote specific policies or?
I'm assuming you're referring to the policies that were specified within the staff report 3.5-1 and 3.5-3 regarding, subordinate to the character of the setting. And I think that should be, there might be some discussion from other commissioners on just elucidating what those findings would entail, but I understand what the direction is from.
Yeah, and essentially my argument is this isn't about a cell tower at all. We would not allow any building that's 7 stories in height in this location, any building. So I want to be consistent with what we would do if it was a hotel or a residence or any other type of structure. And so that is my rationale for denying the application. I was somewhat satisfied about the biological concerns through the discussion, but my concerns about the compliance with the zoning ordinance or the general plan requirements regarding visual impacts was not assuaged.
Is there a second on this motion?
I will second that motion.
All right, can we have roll call vote?
And if I just may clarify before we do the vote, would that be then bringing back an alternative resolution at the next Planning Commission meeting on September 15th?
Whichever you think is easier and better for you guys. I think we could do it now if you want to take a 15-minute break and try and put something together. But I also know that these things are very important to get correct, and I wouldn't want to pressure you. And maybe it's better to take the extra time since we have the tolling agreement to last until then.
Staff would request that we put this to September 15th, so that way we have the adequate time to be able to craft this, spend time on it, review with council as well, and then also make that publicly available and to the commission as well. So you have more time to ensure that that reflects the discussion today and what the commission would like to see as the reasons supporting a denial.
All right, thank you. So with that, can we have roll call vote, please?
Vice Chair Weedman, I noticed that Deputy County Counsel had his hand up.
I don't see it.
Deputy County Councilman,
maybe.
it was briefly, but Ms. Krog got there.
Okay,
Okay, great, thank you.
great.
I'm not sure. Are we taking a roll call on denial of the project, or are we taking a roll call on it? Because I haven't heard a motion to continue.
Sure.
The 15th. I wasn't sure.
It's a motion from Commissioner Jones, seconded by Commissioner Pollan, to direct staff to prepare an alternate resolution to make findings for denial of the project to be brought back at the September 15th agenda.
Right.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying. Yes.
All right. Commissioner Pollan,
Yes.
Commissioner Jones,
Yes.
Commissioner Bibini,
Yes.
Chair Wiedemann.
Yes,
Motion passes.
all right. And I want to thank everybody. This has been a complicated, and they are. And I really appreciate Commissioner Jones' comment of talking because of the Coastal Act and that and the coastal plan. And I appreciate that you really put it, it's not just about a cell tower. When you look at something 7 stories, it is much more complex. All right, with that, the vote, let's see, have to look back at my script. Well, I guess I should say agenda item number 7, matters from staff. Is there any more matters from staff? Julia?
I just want to, if you don't mind, I would just like to comment that I know the commission from the last, sorry, let me back up. The item that was just continued to the 15th will be the only item that's on that agenda. So what we will also be sure to add is the discussion that was requested from Commissioner Jones regarding bylaws, including about continuances. We'll be sure that that's added to the 15th. And then if it is ready to go, we would also be happy to add the discussion on the vacation home rental planning commission resolution to that agenda. So that way there is additional items. But I do know that I think some comments were just sent back by our office to Commissioner Jones and Wiedemann for your review and comment before we would post that early next week. So that concludes my comments. Thank you.
All right. And now matters from the commission. Do we have anything else from the commission?
Yeah, I'll just say thank you. I want to thank Julia and Matthew for reviewing the draft resolution and sending it back to me. We've gone back and forth twice now, and I did just get new comments yesterday. So I will, Diana and I will try and get together this week and get them back to you very expeditiously so that hopefully we can wrap this up, because it has gone on like far too long, I think, for everybody's happiness. So thank you so much.
All right. Any other matters from any other commissioner? Seeing none, now we have no minutes to approve, and now we're moving into adjournment. I invite a motion for adjournment.
I'll make that motion to adjourn the meeting today.
Do I have a second?
I will be happy to second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Have a great weekend, everybody.
Yes, and Matthew, thank you for being visual. It was helpful.
Very much so.